Talking a little bit about John Bolton over the course of the last week. Well, everybody is, right? The president is, members of his administration. Republicans are now trashing the man when Laura Ingraham and Sean Hannity had John Bolton on a weekly basis as he used to be a Fox News contributor. But now, all of a sudden, everybody's turning on John Bolton. I wonder why, ladies and gentlemen. I wonder why. Because many who support Donald Trump are very similar to him in this aspect. Anybody trashes their president, they turn on him just like the president does. Well, John Bolton did an interview on ABC News over the weekend, slamming Donald Trump. And he says Donald Trump is not a very informed individual. Have a listen to this.
My experience was he very rarely read much. The intelligence briefings took place perhaps once or twice a week.
Is that unusual?
It's very unusual. They should take place every day. The president should read extensively the material he's given. It's not clear to me that he read much of anything. There was just an unwillingness on the part of the president, I think, to do systematic learning so that he could make the most informed decisions.
Well, that shouldn't be a shock to many. We've learned that he doesn't read his daily reports. He didn't even know where Finland was. Probably not the most educated man, and I agree with what Mr. Bolton is saying in regards to that. That's not a shocker to me. It shouldn't be a shocker to anybody. But then Bolton was asked about Trump being a stable genius. Have a listen to his response to this.
Well, how can anybody call himself a stable genius? He did say it a couple times when I was in his presence, and I just didn't react to it.
So, JD, do you think Donald Trump is a stable genius?
I've never seen an IQ test with the name Donald Trump on it, Brian.
No, I'm just asking you in general terms. Do you think he's a genius?
I think he's a lot smarter than people give him credit for. Do I think he's completely stable? No, I don't think you're completely stable. I don't think I'm completely stable. But do I think he's a stable genius? I really can't answer that question honestly because I don't know the answer. But I do think that he's a lot brighter, and I think he plays chess when other people play checkers.
Well, maybe what he can do one of these days is if he has a big chess game, is he could. Maybe shoot some rubber bullets at some protesters and then hold a chess piece up.
That is figuratively speaking, Brian.
Yeah, maybe he can do that. But I disagree with you. Of
course you do.
I don't think there's anything stable about Donald Trump when you look at his life, when you look at the things he does, the things he says. I can tell you, me personally, as far as stability goes, I know I would never go after a POW. I'd never go after a woman based on looks, especially a colleague or somebody that I have to work with. I don't think there's anything stable about that. I don't think there's any genius about over the weekend calling it the Kung Flu and then joking about telling his people. Well, he doesn't say he was joking about less testing. I don't think there's anything stable or anything genius about Donald Trump. I'll be very clear on that. But we're talking about John Bolton, and again, the interview he did on ABC over the weekend. He gave a few examples, Mr. Bolton did, about Trump's ignorance. Have a listen to this.
Well, there were things that we went over again and again and again that just didn't seem to sink in, like why was the Korean Peninsula partitioned in 1945 at the end of World War II, and what did that lead to, and how did we get to that point?
You say in the book that Trump asked General John Kelly if Finland was part of Russia?
He said those things, absolutely. And when you're dealing with somebody who asks questions like that, it's very hard to know how to proceed.
All right, so that doesn't sound to me like a genius. What do you make of that? Would you agree with John Bolton that it's very difficult to proceed when somebody, in this case the President of the United States, doesn't know where Finland is?
I think that John Bolton is grasping at straws to make Donald Trump look dumb. And I think that John Bolton is the guy that, if he was a true patriot, he would have testified instead of trying to sell his book for $2 million, Brian. And that's why this backlash is taking place. That's why Sean Hannity and Mark Levin and Laura Ingraham and Tucker Carlson and everyone on the right is saying, hey, this guy is a joke, because if he really thought that Donald Trump was a threat to democracy, he would have testified. He chose not to. He decided to cash in.
Okay, so I'm going to make a very important distinction with what you just said. Just because he didn't testify and just because he might not be a patriot does not mean that John Bolton is lying.
Doesn't mean he's not either. He's actually he went on TV a couple weeks ago.
So you think he's lying?
A couple of months ago, and said that he would be willing to lie. He would do whatever it takes, include lying. So yeah, there is a good chance that that John Bolton is lying. But am I really concerned that Donald Trump doesn't know where Finland is or that he thought it was part of Russia? No, I'm not.
Okay. Well, as the president of the United States, I'm shocked that doesn't bother you. But okay, we'll move on.
How is that supposed to? Why is that supposed to bother me? What's supposed to bother me about the lack of geographical acuity of the president of the United States, Brian?
I think. Well, here's what I'll say to that.
Was he a geography major at Wharton? No, it was a business school.
So let me respond.
I'm not shocked.
Okay, so let me respond to that.
Let me ask you this, Brian.
Well, hold on. Before you ask, let me respond to what you just said. As the president of the United States, I would like him to have a high school level amount of geography. That's number one. Number two, when the president is getting briefings and intel, and he gets those briefings on paper every morning, I don't think it's asking too much every morning for the president of the United States to read those briefings and be a part of those briefings. Yes, I find that extremely troubling.
Well, what JD's saying is that he's got a business background. He's not a politician, so he came into office not knowing a lot of things. But to what Bolton is saying is that, okay, fine, I accept that, but I'm going over some basic history, geopolitical history with him, including the partition of Korea. I'm going over and over and over again, and it's not sticking in his brain. And I think that's Bolton's concern, not necessarily that he didn't come in with that knowledge, but that when he's trying to teach him it,
he doesn't make the effort.
It's not getting through to him.
He doesn't make the effort to listen and to learn. And we've all heard from a number of different people that are either currently in his administration or those that are not in his administration any longer that have said he has the attention span of about a 5-year-old child. So that's also an issue. So it's not just the fact that he doesn't know his geography, or maybe he doesn't know where Finland is and he thinks Finland is a part of Russia. It's the fact that the man doesn't go to the intel briefings every day.
Brian, do you know where Finland's at? What is my... Give me one... Well, you said a high school diploma. You have a high school diploma, right?
So you're trying to correlate me...
No, I'm correlating someone with a high school diploma knowing where Finland's at.
No, you're trying to correlate me, a radio host, to what the president of the United States should know as far as knowledge and geography, which is insane.
Well, it's not really geography. He thought that it's not, can you find Finland on a map? He thought that Finland was a part of Russia.
Right, exactly.
Which I guess is kind of geography, but it's also politics.
Exactly. So Bolton went on, and this is the most telling part of this interview. I mean, Bolton has said he's not going to vote for Joe Biden, but he's also not going to vote for Donald Trump. He said in this interview that he hopes Donald Trump is a one-term president. Have a listen to this.
My conclusion is clear. I don't think he should be president. I don't think he's fit for office. I don't think he has the competence to carry out the job. I don't think he's a conservative Republican. I'm not going to vote for him in November. Certainly not going to vote for Joe Biden either. I'm going to figure out a conservative Republican to write in.
How do you think history will remember Donald Trump?
I hope it will remember him as a one-term president who didn't plunge the country irretrievably into a downward spiral we can't recall from. We can get over one term. 2 terms I'm more troubled about.
So there you have it. John Bolton saying he would be troubled by 2 terms. Donald Trump. By the way, Bolton has not, like I said, he has said he will not plan to vote for Joe Biden. He would like another candidate in there on the Republican Party. Listen, make no mistake about it. John Bolton is a staunch Republican. He has been his entire life. But he's not going to be supporting Donald Trump. And by the way, he's not the only person that said that. I remember Colin Powell, that we talked about it last week. Another man who I think a big distinction between Colin Powell and John Bolton. I think Colin Powell is the definition of a patriot. He is a very classy man, a very intelligent man who said he's going to be voting for Joe Biden. I think that is very telling. So I guess the question I would ask our listeners right now is, and to put a little bit of background on my opinion, I've never been a John Bolton fan. I think he's a scumbag. I've never liked the man, never will like the man. Yes, I do believe that he should have testified. If he really cared about this country, he would have put the country before money. But with that being said, I don't think he's lying. I think he sat on this. And by the way, he's probably going to be open to lawsuits. The judge, although allowing this book to get out there, also said that you could be the victim of lawsuits. Let me give out the number. 702-257-5396. Again, that number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation. 257-5396. And the question I'm asking is, do you believe John Bolton? Do you think he's a liar? Do you think he's still a patriot? Did you respect him before? Did you lose respect for him now? And do you believe the things that John Bolton said in this book, such as, Trump calling himself a stable genius, and Bolton's thoughts on that? Examples of Donald Trump's ignorance, the Finland stuff that we were talking about, the troubled past, the fact that he doesn't get up and read his intel briefings every day, the fact that Bolton is making the claim that Donald Trump isn't making the effort to learn and to be better and to be more educated when it comes to being president of the United States? Or do you think these are just all lies and the president should have the right to sue John Bolton? Again, that number, if you want to be a part of the conversation, is 702-257-5396.
And Brian, it doesn't just have to be the entire thing has to be fiction for Donald Trump to have a lawsuit. A lot of these conversations that he has divulged in this book that he was paid $2 million for were classified conversations with the President of the United States, and that can be deemed an act of treason. So even if a few of these things are lies, and I'm sure that 70% is true, 30% is not true. I'm sure there's some true and there's some not true, but if he says anything that is not true, he is subject to a lawsuit. And so he's going to be sued for this. He is probably he could get criminal charges for this, Brian, because again, and as far as the Republican Party having any respect, or even Democrats for that matter, having any respect for John Bolton after this, again, if the guy really wanted, if he was seriously concerned about the well-being of the country, he would have testified during the impeachment. He did not. He decided to get $2 million, which to me isn't that much money considering how much flack he's going to get for this and how his career in politics, in my opinion, in general, is most likely over. But he decided to get paid $2 million to talk about the President of the United States with a publisher that is very anti-publisher, very anti-President of the United States. So yeah, my respect for John Bolton is minimal, and he may have said some truths, and he may have said some mistruths, but either way, he's going to absolutely be subject to a litany of lawsuits.
He's not the only one saying these things, though. I will say that. They have been corroborated by other sources.
Well, and Trump actually called himself a stable genius, I think, on Twitter a couple of times.
All right, so let me respond to the lawsuit
before.
stuff. Let me respond to the lawsuit stuff and what the laws apply here. If he's talking about something that was in confidence, that is classified, then yes, maybe the president will have a case. But he's allowed to speak his mind and he's allowed to speak opinions. There's nothing wrong with that. Donald Trump is a public figure. He's certainly allowed to do that. Here's why I do not think that there will be any lawsuits. And here's why I think the president will not sue. And the reason for that is this. I think the president just wants this story to go away. And this wouldn't be the first time that the president of the United States threatened a lawsuit with someone. He did it with Bill Maher. He does it almost on a weekly basis, it seems like, where he threatens a lawsuit against somebody. He uses the courtroom as a political game. I believe he wants this story to go away. And the problem is, if you try to sue John Bolton, the story is going to come back into the limelight. It's going to be all over the media again. And I don't think the president wants that to happen.